You got to give me some mental health.
Okay.
To that 3 times.
Okay.
If we get,
Ready to roll.
Sesame tuna. Oh, it's
On here.
firefly. Sesame tuna.
There we go.
I'll call this meeting to order if I can get you
Good luck with that.
guys for that invocation, please.
Have you the roll call?
Heavenly Father, thank you for safely gathering us here tonight. We ask that you watch over the county's residents and visitors as we travel over the holidays. As well, we ask that you give us the presence of mind throughout this time in the holidays to stop and appreciate all of your blessings. Amen.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will you call a roll, please?
Hooper,
Here.
Inman,
Here.
Bren,
Here.
Stepka,
Here.
Maxbauer, Fleece,
Present.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Thomas,
Here.
and Richardson's excused.
Thank you. Now, it's not on your agenda, but can we have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported, that the agenda be presented as is. All those in favor?
Aye. Excuse me. I think Commissioner Maxbauer has an addition. You just passed it out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did, thank you, Dennis. The Grand Traverse Band 2% grant for the Commission on Aging.
New business?
That would be old people like me.
Yes.
Okay. With that addition.
I move that we add that as new business.
Support.
Okay. Now all in favor of the motion.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Carried. And we'll put that under the administrator's report. Then we can blame him for being here all night. Limited public comment. Would you like to read the rules for public comment?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. A, any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. B, no person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Thank you. And I think Jim would like to be first.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jim Wiesing. I'm the County Extension Director for Michigan State University Extension here in Grand Traverse County. And I wanted to take this opportunity to share something with you. About a year ago, I talked to most of you and I expressed my consideration for retirement. I was thinking about doing that, and obviously it's a year later and that didn't happen. Except now, after a lot more consideration and about 20 years of service, I have decided to retire as the County Extension Director for Michigan State University Extension in the Grand Traverse County office. And that will be effective March 31st, 2010. The first thing I would like to do is thank the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners, the citizens of Grand Traverse County, and the MSU staff for all of the support that you have provided to MSU Extension in Grand Traverse County during that time, and since 1934 actually, although I wasn't here for that. I'm not quite that old. It's because of this support that MSU Extension has been highly successful. It's because of a great staff and a great program, and I am sad to go. However, it's time. Effective January 8th, 2010, I will give up my position as County Extension Director, and an interim director will be appointed. I will complete several projects for Michigan State University that I have been working on, specifically with Building Strong Sovereign Nations, a program that I started with the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians, and it turned out to be a program that's gone statewide involving all 12 tribes. And at the completion of that project and a few other things that I will be working on, March 31st, I will retire. I'm going to maintain my permanent residence in Grand Traverse County, and it's a wonderful place to live and work, and I just wanted to thank you all for that. So, I just wanted to share this with you. I just didn't want you to hear maybe what could be considered rumors, and I just wanted to thank you. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jim?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, that January 8th is a terrible day. That's the day I got drafted.
Oh,
And that would be 50 years ago.
50 years ago.
Yeah. So, but we're going to miss you, and I want to thank you on behalf of the whole county because you've been a great man sitting in that position.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. I have enjoyed working with each and every one of you and all of your predecessors, and I am sure that you will be highly successful in the future because honestly, Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners is one of the best boards in the state of Michigan. When I first started with Extension, I was what they call the district agent for state and local government assistance. My job was to work with county boards that were having trouble. And quite honestly, I never had to come work with Grand Traverse County, and that's the reason. It's always been a well-run county, highly successful, and I'm sure that will continue. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Jim.
Anybody else? See, nobody can top of that. Special order of business, establishment of recovery zone for EDC.
Good evening. My name is Jean Dorenzi. Work with Grand Traverse County, Brownfield, and Economic Development Authority. Warren and Tina, if you can introduce yourself as well.
My name is Warren Kramer. I'm a director in the Public Finance Department of Robert W. Baird, representing the Traverse City Public Finance Office.
And good evening, I'm Tino Bredup with the Traverse City Area Chamber of Commerce and head of the Traverse Bay Economic Development Corporation.
We just have a short presentation for you tonight. Within your packet is background information on the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, which is part of the overall federal stimulus package that came out in June of this year. The Economic Development Corporation Board reviewed this information and recommended that the recovery zone be established in order to utilize the appropriation given to Grand Traverse County to help create new jobs, spur economic development, and get the private investment back into our community, which is the intention of the federal appropriation. As we indicated, this is a federal program. It's in June of 2009. It was released that over $25 billion in direct allocations for recovery zone it would be allocated to the counties and municipalities throughout the United States. Of that $25 billion, Michigan received $2 billion of that allocation, which is the second largest in the nation, second only to California. Of the $2 billion, Grand Traverse County received $8.1 million for facility bonds, which is the private investment bonds, and $5.4 of the economic facility bond, economic recovery bonding, which is the public piece. The recovery facility bonds has two major components to it and why the stimulus dollars were put into place. It's to create and attract new jobs and to get the private investment back into the community to help spur the economic recovery. That's the major intention of that.
Jean was kind enough to put together this presentation I have to digress for a moment. I don't know how you guys do it. You meet weekly? You know, I find these cameras rather intimidating. When you wake up in the morning, you have a kind of an idea of how you look. And then when you see yourself on TV, it's humbling. In any event, I know you're all very busy and are anxious to get moving for home for the holidays, so I prepared a little cheat sheet for you in addition to the presentation that Jean prepared. What we're going to be talking about tonight and what we're asking the county to do tonight is to designate the county as a recovery zone. This does not obligate you to do anything. It provides you with the option to assist private enterprises in the financing of projects within a designated recovery zone. You're probably all very, very familiar with the old economic development bonds that kind of went away with the Tax Reform Act of 1986. You have seen, I'm sure, some limited activity with economic development bonds, but they were limited to industrial and qualifying warehouse facilities. You know, this goal, or the goal of the recovery zone bonds, is again to lower the cost of borrowing for both public and private enterprises. We did have an opportunity to meet with representatives of the county administration and the city, and we really quickly realized that one of the bonds authorized by the Stimulus Act really doesn't make sense for the county. There are what you call Build America bonds, and again, this is an effort on the federal government's side to broaden the market for municipal projects. A lot of people that buy municipal bonds really no longer need, you know, the tax-exempt income. So the idea that the federal government had was to have municipalities issue taxable bonds and then rebate 35% of that cost, you know, to the issuer. Now that saves approximately 60 basis points, or 0.6%, over traditional, you know, tax-exempt bonds. When you're financing a large project, you know, this could end up being very, very significant dollars. Now that type of bond anybody can issue for the rest of this year and all of 2010. The bonds that we're focusing on here actually work in the same fashion, but instead of a 35% rebate to the issuer, the Recovery Zone Economic Development bonds provide for a 45% rebate to the issuer. So there's even a more significant reduction in the effective cost to finance these public projects. But the one requirement, well, there's several requirements. One, you have to, you know, finance projects in a designated recovery zone. They have to be issued prior to June 31, 2010, and they cannot exceed the volume cap limitation.
December
December.
31st.
What did I say?
June.
Oh, that's
December 31st.
I meant December, so my apologies. But the recovery zone economic development bonds really wouldn't make sense for the county, because the requirement of the recovery zone bonds is prevailing wage. And you're not a prevailing wage community. If you were a prevailing wage community, it would make, you know, tremendous sense. But these have the Buy American requirements, and of course the what did I just say? Buy American and the prevailing wage. But the bonds that we're really focusing on today, and which is consistent with Jean's presentation, are the recovery zone facility bonds, which provides tax-exempt financing for private corporations, individuals, enterprises. As I said earlier, you know, these type of bonds were limited to industrial and qualifying warehouse facilities. Now you can finance any sort of commercial enterprise on a tax-exempt basis, so that significantly reduces, the borrowing cost of the enterprise financing the project. Pursuant to the statute or the act, traditional economic development corporations and the Michigan Strategic Fund are authorized to issue these bonds on behalf of these private enterprises. Again, it requires the county to establish a recovery zone, and maybe Tino or Gene, you can talk about what we're proposing here, so we can focus development consistent with the whole grand vision.
Right.
But I'm available to answer, any questions that you may have regarding these facility bonds for private enterprises.
Do you want to answer questions, or do you want to go through the whole presentation first?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. You have stuff to talk about. My apologies.
But if you have questions, if you want to stop and ask the questions, we want just to be fluid, interactive. The Economic Development Authority, Economic Development Corporation Board is recommending that we establish a recovery zone. And we put Grand Traverse County as a whole be the designated recovery zone, with the added piece that we give higher preference to projects that are shovel-ready, that are within the city, village, or planned growth areas. And that added piece was attached for the grand vision. Economic development is looking at being part of the grand vision. It's part of the community. It was a regional piece. So that's why we tied that piece to it, the planned growth, city, and the village. Again, we want to emphasize that this does not commit Grand Traverse County. It does not commit your full faith and credit. The EDC is a conduit. It does not put the county at risk. And the bonds that we would use for the private must be marketable bonds, being that there has to be an identified source of a repayment. And again, the next piece is that the bonds must be issued by December 31st, going back to that the projects must be shovel-ready.
So you're saying we have a year to prepare, essentially, to get shovel-ready projects?
We have a year to prepare,
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
In a year to prepare and a year to issue.
Right, okay.
Yeah, an issue will take
Issue.
6 or more months.
Right.
So really, what this is going to do, it makes sense to do it countywide, because there will not be many projects that can be shovel-ready that are going to qualify in this timeline of a year. That's a really short window. And so, we're hoping there's a project or two that do qualify, so there's actually something to kind of, a project we can qualify for.
Right.
But-
And I would add, Dennis, too, that I think, there may be a number of projects that want to line up for this type of funding, but the credit worthiness factor will eliminate them from funding.
And you're only talking about $12 million, right? Or
We're
is it?
talking about $8.1 million for the private,
And then there's $4 million more, right?
5.4 for public.
Two separate buckets.
Okay.
So
Two separate buckets.
The 5.4.
Two separate eligibilities then.
Correct.
Public infrastructure and private
Private.
development or private
Okay.
company activity.
I guess my point was there's not a lot of projects that'll fit under that umbrella, considering how expensive projects are.
Right.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of obligors that have the credit worthiness to significantly
Okay.
That'd be a big factor.
to market their credit.
There's a couple of steps that will be taken on this. Today, we're asking for the establishment of the recovery zone as Grand Traverse County, and the next step will be to create the criteria, the application, and what we'll be looking for in those applications. The Economic Development Corporation Board will be looking at the criteria in January, and we're also asking the County Planning Commission to look at that as well, it being part of the Grand Vision piece. And then the recommendation will come to this authority, because you need to establish that criteria at your January meeting. So there are steps involved into this. The EDC would be issuing the bonds as the, for the private investment. If there is a public project, those would be issued by the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners. So-
And I think that whole process can be streamlined very easily by evidencing or requiring that any potential projects evidence a marketable pledge. Either their own revenue stream, a bank letter of credit, or, some borrowers may come, with a letter of intent, to purchase the bonds, for their benefit.
Okay, question. If I can clarify how this will work again. You indicated that we wouldn't have a full faith and credit. Grand Traverse County would not have a full faith and credit on this program?
No, not at
Okay.
all.
So
Not
how-
on the private.
Not on the private.
So, okay, so on when you say that the EDC is going to bond the project, in order to do that, you have to have a full faith credit of the Grand Traverse County, don't you?
No, there's
You do
no-
not?
No, there's no full faith and credit of the county municipality. That's why you utilize the EDC as the conduit, because it's just a conduit to issue the tax exempt bonds.
So would the federal government back it then?
Well, the issuer is either the
Who's
county
the issuer?
EDC, the county EDC, or the state, the Michigan Strategic Fund,
Oh.
through the MEDC. Based on the credit of if the credit of the recipient, the borrower, the private sector developer or company is strong enough to attract buyers for the bond.
So you can market it, you can market an EDC bond without the full faith and credit of the county?
Yes.
Wow.
Under this program.
But and this is very typical with traditional economic development bonds. Frankly, the county doesn't want, the development or the project risk anyway. So in order to participate in this type of program, the obligor, the borrower, needs to come to the table, with some sort of marketable credit pledge. And again, that could be in the form of a bank letter of credit, some sort of collateralization. It could even come in the form, as I mentioned earlier, bringing a deep pockets buyer to the table. But again, you want to keep the county removed, from the development risk associated, with these type of financings.
That's the presentation.
What kind of projects you're talking about in the public?
On the public, Commissioner Thomas, we really have not identified any public projects. We would evaluate possible that might come up, but you'd have to look at the Davis-Bacon Act and the federal prevailing wage versus the 45% return on that investment.
So we would solicit anyone who might have any public entity that might have an interest in developing infrastructure. But remember, there are so many requirements. The bonds they have to be bid ready and shovel ready by the end of next year. So it pretty much has to be a project that's already under design. The other day, for example, I talked with the people from Long Lake about the new school in Long Lake. But then I found out from Gene, and I called the schools, I found out from Gene that they have their own access to these bonds without the county, without using the county money. So quite frankly, there may not be a project in the public infrastructure realm that we may be doing with these, and that money may be returned. Or not returned, it's not money, but we may not access those. The problem is that, as Warren said, you're required to use Davis-Bacon, and my experience has been that you can expect 10 to 13% cost increase if you have to pay prevailing wage under Davis-Bacon. So when you weigh that in against the benefit of the bond, there's really very little benefit to do it in that manner. You can just sell tax-exempt bonds, and you're probably better off. So I don't think it makes sense for us to do here.
What I was wondering about is, would roads qualify?
Roads? I mean, roads certainly would qualify under the recovery zone economic development bonds, which authorizes the county to issue bonds for public purposes. And Under those provisions, the county will receive a 45% refundable credit or a rebate of 45% of the interest cost associated with that particular financing. But the requirement of the Economic Development Recovery Zone bonds, is prevailing wage, which significantly increases the cost of the project. So in many instances, it doesn't make sense to avail yourself of that allocation if you're not a prevailing wage community, and you are not.
Now, that doesn't mean we won't explore it. I mean, we'll look at every option that we have, and if it makes financial sense, you can bet we'll bring it back to you for consideration. We're just not real optimistic that anything's going to fit that mold, frankly. We think there's a lot more chance that the private bonds will have a buyer or two, or a seller, or a user, I guess.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to name Grand Traverse County a recovery zone as outlined by the Economic Development Corporation.
Support. Support by Inman. Discussion?
I guess the only comment that I would make, we heard that Grand Traverse County is not a prevailing wage job. I'll guarantee you get a job paid for with federal money in this community, they will establish a prevailing wage that contractors have to pay.
Oh, there's no question.
Because I've played that game more times than I...
And Commissioner, that's exactly what would happen if the county chose to avail itself or utilize the Recovery Zone Economic Development Bond allocation that was provided by the federal government.
I recently completed a job in Charlevoix County where I paid laborers $24.46 an hour. They get paid $9.50 an hour in my building.
You had your hand up?
I do. The only question I have for you is, in the resolution that you have, you tied that to, what's the terminology on it? You put that further, the projects must be within the city, village, or planned growth areas. And I understand that you were trying to tie that to the grand vision, and I see the merit in that. But I'm just wondering if you need to do that at the onset, if you're at all limiting yourself, or is that something that you could do with the criteria later? Because it does have that, the project area must be officially designated as a recovery zone. Are you eliminating those areas outside of that?
When we utilize that language, the Grand Vision does not have a map that ties exactly where these growth and investment areas are. So I think it gives us a broad enough approach that it's not going to limit us that much.
In addition, I think the actual language says that it will, it says further projects that are shovel-ready that are within the city, village, or planned growth areas to give Grand Traverse County the best return on the dollar for strengthening the economy be given a higher preference. It doesn't say only those projects.
So
It
they
just
will
says
not
higher.
be necessarily eliminated because they're not in there, just that, so it'd be basically doing the same thing as if you established it in the criteria, where if you had two projects and one would have greater weight because of, it was within one of those cities or villages. Okay.
It's fair analysis, yes.
Anything else? All in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Merry Christmas.
And you. Next is the consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file. Resolution opposing veto of MSUE and MAES funding, Alger County. Number 2, resolution opposing the Michigan Water Ballot Initiative, Alger County. Number 3, resolution supporting merit curriculum adjustments to support career and technical education, Alger County. Number 4, resolution supporting transfer of firefighter training credentials, Alger County. Number 5, resolution for legislation for alternative funding for Pure Michigan, Antrim County. Number 6, correspondence of November 23, 2009 from Dave Camp, forestry funding. Number 7, correspondence of November 30, 2009 from Sheriff Bensley, ICE money. Number 8, correspondence of December 1, 2009 from Commission on Aging, millage election. Number 9, correspondence of December 7, 2009 from Prosecuting Attorney Schneider regarding road commissioner benefits. Number 10, correspondence of December 10, 2009 from Peninsula Township regarding phragmite treatment. Referrals, none. Approval of minutes. Number 11, board minutes of regular session of November 24, 2009. Recommend approval. Number 12, closed session minutes of November 24, 2009. Public Safety Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. Number 13, snowmobile grant acceptance. Number 14, Sheriff's Office surplus vehicle. Number 15, Sheriff's Office jail medical services contract. Human Services Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. Number 16, Grand Traverse Regional Healthcare Coalition Service Agreement Renewal. Number 17, Medical Examiner Compensation and Agreement. Number 18, Regional Community Foundation Grant. Number 19, Environmental Health Fees for 2010. Legislation and Administration Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. Number 20, appointments to the Board of Public Works. Number 21, amendments to the staffing plan approved in 2010 budget. Number 22, staffing plan amendment Kingsley Clinic. Number 23, employee assistance contract renewal. Number 24, COAM Central Dispatch Supervisory Unit. Number 25, Teamsters Central Dispatch Unit. Number 26, Teamsters Health Department Bargaining Unit. Number 27, DK Security Policy and Procedure Revisions. Number 28, payment in lieu of insurance. Number 29, appointments to boards and committees. Physical Resources Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. Number 30, Twin Lakes easement. Number 31, Clean Sweep Grant Contract Renewal. Number 32, Grant Application MSU Extension. Number 33, MSU Extension Staffing Plan Amendment. Number 34, Howe Arena Entrance Doors. Ways and Means Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. Number 35, Brownfield Cost Recovery Action at Four Corners. Number 36, Tart Trails Funding Approval. Number 37, Support of 2% Tribal Grant Applications. Number 38, Approval to Purchase New World Systems Public Safety Application. Number 39, Approval to Carry Forward 2009 Allocation to 2010 IT Budget. Number 40, Radio Service and Maintenance Bids. Number 41, Sheriff's Office Vehicle Purchase. Number 42, Parks and Recreation Swim Scholarship Fees. Number 43, Central Dispatch Equipment Purchase. Number 44, Budget Adjustments. Number 45, Addendum to the Travel Policy 2009. Number 46, Child Care Fund State Budget Approval. Number 47, Rental Rate for 2010.
Consent calendar. Is there anybody in the public who would like to have anything removed? Yes, sir.
Number 34, all amendments.
34. Okay. Anybody else? Board? Have at it.
Number 2. Number 28. Number 30. Number 36. And number 38, please.
Yeah.
17.
Yeah, I just want to point out that on number 41, the sheriff's office vehicle purchase, we actually have the prices of the vehicles now, and so I have a new resolution. I don't know if you just want the resolution or if you want to pull it and then have the resolution
Do it by
reviewed.
itself.
Okay,
What was that?
what item is that? 41.
Is that all? Good thing we had a bunch of them, we didn't have any left.
I'll be short.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item 2, 17, 28, 30, 34, 36, 38, 41.
Support. Moved, supported, by roll call vote.
Commissioner Edman?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Stepka?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Hooper?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes. Motion passes. Now is another opportunity for public comment. If anybody would like to comment. Okay, we'll move on to item C, the administrative report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is a letter from Bill Rokas that indicates that recently there were two tax tribunal adjustments that were stipulated to, in this case in Garfield Township. One was the Lowe's Home Center and one was Cherryland Mall. The stipulation means that there was action taken to settle the issue without having a hearing at the tax tribunal, and it resulted in a reduction in taxable value of $3,429,330 and a cost to the county of $35,137.12 this year. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Evidently, Bill says we're starting to see more stipulations by the local units. And I think this is the result of the fact that typically, while the local unit has responsibility for filing the assessment and the appeals or defending it in a tax tribunal, they are typically the one that receives the least revenue as a result of any kind of a settlement. So there's very little impetus for a township to follow through with the lengthy and costly legal assessment with the tax tribunal. We've had some preliminary discussions, Dean and Bill and I, about what we might do in certain cases to involve the county in some of these, or to at least bring to you a possibility of involving the county. And so I just wanted to bring this issue to your attention. I want to ask your permission for Dean and I and Bill to go meet with Chuck Horn and his staff to kind of get some feelings from them as a township so we could better present to you kind of their position on these. And then we'd like to have a discussion with you about that in the next month or two, and then possibly go have a meeting with the Township Association to talk with them about it. I think it's important that we kind of understand where the townships are coming from.
Dennis, do we have any idea how many of these are going on throughout the county in other townships?
I think I can tell you this, there are 12 large ones in Garfield Township alone, the largest being the Great Wolf Lodge, which is a $9 million tax appeal. So the problem here is, so no, I don't have an answer of how many countywide.
Well, it's close. I mean,
It's
it
at least
certainly
9
gives me
more.
a feel for it.
Yeah, and so, and in this case, when something like this is stipulated to, this $35,000 has to be found in this year's budget.
Yeah.
Because it was part of the tax rate. And so I think it's really important that we look at this. And when in Marquette, years ago, we had a similar situation. And the county actually, and I'm not suggesting we want to do this now, but we actually set up kind of a defense fund to assist local units who wanted to pursue large claims and defend them, to assist them in those efforts. And, I think it might even include engaging schools, the college, because everyone's impacted by this. And so we don't know, we want to have a talk with the townships first, but, if this becomes a trend because of our economic condition, it just kind of exacerbates the whole tax problem.
Back when I used to do these sorts of things, the schools or the college or anybody else ever wants to assist you in the defending your assessment. So the township, and particularly a general law township that's operating on less than 1 mil now, they don't have any dog in the fight, but they gotta do the fight. And the only ones that cost anything are the big utilities and big commercials. And I don't know whether it's worth us fighting it, because they have experts who know when they're going to get the reduction. You know, they know when they go to the tribunal.
Well, my concern...
We've got a case, we'll
My
win it.
concern, frankly, Commissioners, if what happens is, because of that, townships just begin to stipulate, then word gets around, this township stipulates, we may see many more of these challenges, and I think we at least need to explore whether that's a possibility.
But you still, when you don't have the money to fight it, you stipulate.
Well, and that may be why the county needs to step in, and maybe others need to step in certain situations to help them.
Dennis, I don't think we can make a determination whether or not we should step in unless we know how many of these are going on throughout the county. And you did mention that you know of 12 in Garfield Township. How many others in other townships are there?
There's a lot of them. The utilities usually go to the Board of...
Dean reminded me that we've asked Lori Spencer to compile a list of every appeal that's out there in the county, and she's working on that now. So we will have that for you when we bring the issue back to you. But all we really want to do is just get your permission to go sit down with Garfield and just kind of explore what they're facing so that we have some better sense of this. And then maybe the Township Association, and then back to you.
But I really think we need to know what's going on throughout the county.
We will have that for you very soon.
So you just need consent, not a pen?
Sonny?
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely, we have to, try to get a handle on how many of these there are and where they are. I guess one of my questions would be, we have a joint meeting with the townships coming up January 21st, I believe.
Well, actually, it won't be the 21st now because John Axe is unavailable, so we're looking for a new date.
So do we want to at least mention it on that agenda? Or, but we kindly committed that agenda to do the BPW discussion, so, which is going to take most of that time
I would
period,
suggest that
probably.
we leave it for another meeting with the townships, and maybe we'll have to have another special one. I think it's going to take a month or two to kind of figure out exactly how the townships feel about it.
Well, and
before we
I
bring
think
it.
all of the townships, they too are scratching for money, and more and more of these appeals are being filed, and Dick's exactly right. Utility companies and those folks are the largest taxpayers to these townships too. And if they find out that, okay, they're being, and all of the assessors are using the same rates, so if they get stipulation out of one township, they can go make that argument in all of the other townships because they're using the same rates per mile of wire and
It's a domino
all those kind of things, and they're going to be after all of them. And the townships can't afford to fight those.
So unless the board tells me otherwise, we'll just go ahead and do some investigation of this and bring it back to you, if that's all right with you?
Give me something to do.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is just a resolution that we were asked to present to you to ask if you would support the efforts that are underway between Long Lake Township, the Tattle Board, the District Library Board, and the schools. The schools are preparing to build a new school in Long Lake Township, and as part of that, they're working with the library and with Long Lake Township to incorporate into their school a public library that would be open to the public. And I think this is just really shows growth among our local units, that they're willing to kind of work together. I'm not familiar with many cases where the schools have been willing to kind of do this kind of a joint partnership and have a public facility. I hope it's the beginning of many more, but they wanted to ask if you would send a letter of support so as they look for grant funding and other funding that they'll have your support in that effort.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we sign the resolution of support for Traverse Area District Library, TCAPS, Long Lake Township, and the Friends of the Library towards the construction and operation of the new branch library in Long Lake Township.
Support.
Moved and supported, further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carries.
The next item is the 2009 audit engagement letter. We have included that in the packet. just asking for approval for the chairman to sign that. This is the third year of the three-year audit contract. I have reviewed the letter, and it is in agreement with our contract.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to authorize the third year of the audit contract.
Support.
Been moved and supported, discussion? Favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, on this next item, do you want to also consider the 2% application that Commissioner Maxbauer passed out from the Commission on Aging at the same time? Do you want to do them together?
Let's do it. Pass them all forward,
Let me get back to my,
as is our policy.
yeah, I got that.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll start on the
We're
first one.
going so fast.
On
Yes.
page 13, we
Yeah.
have the tribal grant request from the pavilions, and this is for grant money to support their Arboretum project. Arboretum, is that correct pronunciation? I think so.
I'm not going to make a stab at it.
Yeah, and so that's the first request. And then the second request, Commissioner, did you want to do this one?
I can. Last week, or the week before, I lose track of time sometimes, the Commission on Aging, we had a subcommittee meeting, and we talked about 2% grant application to support the millage. Without the millage, the Commission on Aging will cease to exist, period. We are asking for $2,500 from the tribe, and we will match it with $2,500. And we want to continue services for Grand Traverse County seniors.
Are you saying we, as in the county board?
No, I'm just saying, we are applying, we are agreeing to allow Grand Traverse County to apply for 2% matching funds.
For the Commission on Aging.
Yes.
Either one of you.
Well,
They're matching it with $2,500 in funds that they're getting through fundraising?
Yes.
Okay. And then I have the question of, if this blurs the line between, how the involvement with a millage proposal.
yeah, I'm going to let Al address that, but I guess I'm going to say right off the bat that I don't know that the applicant should be the Grand Traverse County Commission on Aging. It probably has to be the the millage committee that would apply for the money, I think. But I'll let Al take it from there.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Speaking to the microphone, please.
Well, as I've stated in the past, the Commission on Aging is a non-juristic entity. There's no statutory authority for it. It's a hybrid. I'm not sure what it is, quite frankly. It doesn't fall under the Aging Citizens Act. It's something that we created. Nonetheless, the criteria for recipients of 2% funds is quite broad. I don't see any reason why a subcommittee or a committee of a non-juristic entity such as the Commission on Aging would not qualify for 2% funding for whatever purpose they wanted to use it for. So that having been said, I'm not sure if the committee for the promotion of a millage for Commission on Aging wants to apply for the 2% funding. I don't see any reason why it should be prohibited, and I don't see any reason why the board can't support it.
Dennis, if that's the case, and I'm sure it is because Al's virtually never wrong, we should probably change that to the name of applicant to Friends of Commission on Aging.
There you go.
Okay,
Sure.
yep.
You have a motion?
So, I'm going to take them separate. Make a motion that we approve the application for the 2% funds for the Grand Traverse Pavilions Foundation.
Support.
Moved and supported, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried.
So I would make a motion that we approve the application from the Friends of the Grand Traverse Commission on Aging for the 2% funds on the advice of council that it's
Support.
allowable.
Support.
I have to have one more clarification if you could, Al. Because Grand Traverse County has to be the fiduciary of all of these grant monies now, we have to receive them and then have to issue checks. Is Grand Traverse County able to pay for a millage election or contribute toward a millage election?
I don't believe that by approving the application of Friends of Commission on Aging, that the board itself is participating in the support of a millage for the Commission on Aging.
But I believe that under the new guidelines as set forth by the tribe, we have to receive all of the money and then have to distribute it, and we have to account for it. Is that correct, Dean?
That's changing daily, the criteria for these 2% funds.
Right, but I believe that's the last word we had, is we have to receive it, and we're responsible for the record keeping, if you will. Is that correct, Dean?
I don't believe so. We are the fiduciary. We will receive the grant if one is awarded, but, we pass it on to the ultimate recipient. We do have to make sure they report on its use, but other than that, we're not responsible for how they use it or their accounting. We don't control that. We do, account for the funds received in terms of receiving it in, but we're paying it over to the entity or the agency for their use.
So when do these have to be into the tribe by?
31st?
The 31st?
Yes.
Further discussion?
Would you prefer the motion be upon your review, or are you comfortable with your? Okay.
Happy? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Carried.
Next item is the letter of agreement with the Circuit Court Association, which was negotiated these past few weeks. It is at the same terms as all the other settlements that we have done in the last few months, 1.5% pay increase for next year. All of the terms are the same. The contract, as you can see, or the agreement has been approved by Judge Powers and Judge Rogers, and also approved by the Court Association and myself. So I would recommend approval.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the letter of agreement with Circuit Court Association.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carried.
The next item is the request that you had us bring forward from Ways and Means on Civic Center South. You can see Dean's letter is included in here. Oh, there's Dean's signature down at the bottom. I couldn't see who it was from. Dean indicates that he feels at this point in time that he could not guarantee where the $25,000 could come from without impacting the fund balance, I believe. Correct?
That is correct.
So that's what we have to report.
Okay, so do we need a motion then to wait till 2010?
You wouldn't necessarily need a motion to do that. What I'm asking is we simply wait until we know where we end 2009 and then look at it. We could be looking at this again as early as February. I simply don't know at this point how the year is going to close. And it's not that I couldn't find a line item or a department where we could come up with $25,000. I'm more concerned with the overall actual revenues, actual expenditures, and there's some quite a bit of just some uncertainty in the final revenue numbers at this point.
So what Dean's saying is, we can tell you places where there's going to be $25,000 left over, but when you look at the cumulative general fund budget, we won't know until probably the 1st of February whether it's a positive balance or a negative balance. And I think you're saying we can look at it then and see if it's a positive balance that might make it more easy, make it easier for you to consider. I don't know, Commissioner, how you feel about that.
I don't have a problem with that.
Mr. Chairman, in order to have discussion, I think we need a motion. So I would move that we notify Civic Center South that at this time, we are unable to make an appropriation to their organization.
Support.
Been moved and supported, discussion?
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, I think that letter, if it was verbatim, like Sonny said, I don't think we should send a letter like that. Number one, this appropriation is for the year 2010, and
Not if it's coming out of the 2009 budget, which is what you asked for.
right, but if we have the funds available in the 2009 budget, we wouldn't expend them until 2010, so.
Technically, it's 2009 funds, but if you recall, what we've done in the past is taken it out of the previous year's fund balance as the appropriation in lieu of the next year's appropriation. So we've always done it ahead of time. It's like the cars. When we buy cars for the sheriff at the end of the year, we're buying 2010 cars, we're buying them with 2009 money, and this is that same kind of a situation. But technically, you're right, Commissioner, it is 2009 money.
Well, that's exactly what Jamel's doing on her purchase, too.
Commissioner Fleece, I really do support Civic Center South. I think it's a wonderful project. And I initially voted against this appropriation simply because I don't feel that we have enough financial information at this time to make the appropriation. The only reason I supported Commissioner Wheelock's motion was for the purpose of discussion. I just don't think now is the time. I think after we have our numbers in at the end of January, that we should look at it again.
No, and I agree with that. I don't have a problem doing that. We either need to reword this letter or not send a letter at all. I don't know that they necessarily need to receive a letter.
We had to have a motion in order to have discussion.
Well, I don't know. That's the point.
It would be my take on it that we not send a letter and we wait until February or whenever Dean has time to review the final figures.
Send it if we find out we can't afford it. If we can't find the money.
If we can, just send a check.
Send it, if you send it now, you're telling them we're shutting them off.
Right.
We don't
Yeah.
know.
I'm with Commissioner Fleece on this. I'd rather not send the letter.
Well, that's fine, we just vote down the motion.
I understand.
I don't have
But if
a
we're going
problem
to send,
with
but if
that.
we're going to send any communication, we'd say, you know, regarding the discussion we've had regarding your appropriation, we're still determining where our 2009 budget is, and we'll notify you in the very near future. I mean, you know, that's something simple like that, but other than that, I'd just soon not send the letter.
Not send a letter.
Do you want to amend your motion to take the letter out of it?
Just turn down the motion, it's the easiest thing to do.
I just vote it down.
Just vote it down, and then it just goes on. It's just, we had to have a motion in order to have the discussion, so.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion?
No.
No. Oops. Never mind.
Bonnie's just got her.
How about roll call?
Roll call.
Commissioner Friend,
No.
Stepka,
No.
Max Bauer,
No.
Fleece,
No.
Wheelock,
No.
Hooper,
No.
Inman,
No.
Thomas.
You know what? We've never had
That's exactly what I was going to
We've
bring up.
never had
We've
a-
never had an all-no vote.
no vote, so I'm gonna vote yes. We can't have a unanimous no vote.
Wait
till the Motion people of South failed.
County hear that.
Motion failed?
Motion fails.
Is there anybody like to do anything else?
No.
No.
We'll just let her go until we
Yep.
can, okay.
Right.
You didn't really put me down as a yes, did you?
The next item, if I
That's her
may,
job.
are some final budget amendments for 2009. They're on page 24. The first one, I'm going to be very brief. Based on the reported loss reserves in our insurance fund, I'm recommending that we appropriate first an additional $50,000 to help cover those reserves. And I've identified the line items where we would cover that appropriation. And then the last item on the page is the amendment for the child care fund based on the financial projection that I provided at Ways and Means. I know they're large numbers, but that is the result of where I believe we're going to end the year, and we do need to make that amendment for the child care fund as well.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to support the two budget amendments as outlined by the Finance Director.
Would you support?
Support.
Been moved and supported, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same, carried.
Thank you, The next item, Mr. Chairman, is we told you we'd report back on the Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Office, the property purchase agreement. We have not received any kind of an agreement from civil counsel or the sheriff, so at this time I would just put that on hold and we'll bring it back to you in January. Dean?
I've provided the claims summary for the month of December. Total claims, $8,234,956.57. That's with the STEPCA and APREA claims, which are separately identified, backed out of the total. Need approval of that dollar amount.
I would move that we approve total claims in the amount of $808,234,956.57.
Support. Supported, please.
Somebody supported
All in
that.
favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. She's in favor.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the payment to STEPCA PREA claims in amount of $2,326.62.
Support. Been moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye. You have to roll call that one.
Oh, that's right.
He has to
He's sitting
decline.
here. Roll call vote. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thanks.
Commissioner Stepka?
Abstain.
Max Bauer?
Absent.
I'll come back to her.
Well, you can if she hurries.
Fleece?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes. Say yes.
Commissioner Max Bauer? Here.
I'm sorry, what's the
The
motion?
motion to approve the
PREA
step.
bill.
STEPCA
Yes.
PREA bill.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we need to make a motion for it to approve the executive committee
They
meeting.
were, it was in the,
Where's that in the,
yep.
They were in the consent
Is
calendar.
that done?
You already approved it.
It's right in the first part.
When you approve the minutes, you
Pass
also
them
approve the
back in.
specials.
okay, all right, good.
And while we're doing that, while we're passing those back in, I do want to mention that, excuse me, under that section, I neglected to mention this earlier, on number 10, correspondence from Peninsula Township on the Phragmites treatment. Also included in there is the Acme Township report. They're both in there. Those are the two townships that we put money to because we have property in both of those, so it's Acme and Peninsula. Just wanted to mention that. All right, the organizational meeting for the board, just a reminder, is Monday, January 4th at 8 a.m. here in this room. And as part of that, the Rules Committee met this past week. Commissioners Friend, Max Bauer, Richardson was the chairman, Inman, and Wheelock. And I think Commissioner Friend's going to give an update on the some of the recommendations that they made.
That's fine. Commissioner Richardson's not here, who chaired that, that board rule discussion. So all of us that were appointed to it were in attendance, and generally, Bob Cooney had a number of suggestions based on, some of just the restructuring and renumbering, removing any redundancies that are in the board rules, also referencing the appropriate statutes and using verbiage straight from those statutes, just so that the board rules are more clear and more direct and traceable to those statutes. I think that accurately conveys a lot of his suggestions. Also, as commissioners, what I saw was my personal opinion was a lot of good dialogue, and not really it was really a compilation of thoughts. I think that what we were trying to do is build on what currently works, and also maybe look for some suggestions from each other and talk about maybe some improvements based on the past year of working together. And I think primarily the root of some of the changes suggested try to deal with the efficiency of meetings, and the ease of following issues through the county for residents and, people who come for presentations and are involved in issues moving through the county, the ease of following that. Also, allowing all of the commission to be aware of all of the issues in front of us by restructuring some of the subcommittee meetings, because the fundamental changes that we were looking at were from 4 subcommittee meetings per month to 2 committee of the whole meetings. It would still be in one each. Well, right now they're Tuesday and Wednesday of the first week and Tuesday, Wednesday of the second week. And what by and large we're proposing is moving them to Wednesday and combining the Tuesday and Wednesday meeting, and it would be on Wednesday. So every Wednesday it would be the Board of Commissioners would meet. And again, that not only makes it so that we are all aware of all of the issues, but also the public is aware that, and staff who presents things, that it's a Board of Commissioners meeting day. So additionally, one of the changes would be the Ways and Means, which is a committee of the whole, to be consistent with the other 2 meetings in the first 2 parts of the week. So right now, we have some preliminary changes from Bob Cooney, but we met last Friday, so he had very little time to work on all of those, and he had a bunch of notes and came very prepared, and so he didn't have much time to make some draft changes as of yet. So they're pretty rough, but I think they're going in the right direction based on the conversation that we have, and I am guessing that they will be finished and in the packet for the January 4th meeting.
Yes. What we'd like you to do is those commissioners on the committee, if you take a look at them and if you have any comments on them, try to get those to Bob, at the first part of next week, and then he'll try to incorporate anything that maybe was misunderstandings. And then our intention is, when your packets come out for the organizational meeting, the new draft of the rules will be in there, and it'll be in a form so you can see what's been taken out, what's been added, and you'll be able to see that. Basically, one other thing I'd like to talk to you about, if you're done, Commissioner. Were you done? So the recommendation is that the first meeting of the month be on the first Wednesday, and it be a committee called Public Health and Safety. And really, it's combining those first 2 meetings, and it would be 7:30 on Wednesday morning. The next week would be a 7:30 Wednesday morning meeting that would be called Resource Management and Administration. And that would include L&A, Legislative and Administration, and Physical Resources. The third week would be Ways and Means at 7:30 in the morning on Wednesday. That's changed from 5 o'clock on Tuesday night to 7:30 at Wednesday. And then, of course, the fourth meeting, the last week of the month on Wednesday would be the board meeting. So what it means is all the commission meetings would then be on Wednesdays, 3 in the morning and then 1 in the evening. As you might expect, we're in a little bit of a dilemma here on how we post for the meetings the day or 2 days after the organizational meeting. Chris came to me today and said, what do I put? Do I do public safety on Tuesday, and do I do human resources on Wednesday? Or do I put committee of the whole or this new public health and safety on Wednesday? And so because we need to post that. And so my suggestion would be that we post it as 2 committee meetings on Wednesday, one following the other. And hopefully if the board agrees and goes with this new committee, we'll have everything already on the agenda. It'll just be, we'll combine them together and we'll have another agenda ready for you, but we'll post them all on Wednesday if that's generally in agreement with you. The one other thing that the committee talked about was changing the format of the agendas for those committee meetings. And they would like to use the same format or a similar format for the board meeting, which would be utilizing a consent calendar for those meetings, so that our agendas would all have a consent calendar And of course, that'll take a while to kind of work out so that we understand exactly what you feel is something that belongs there and what belongs separate. But they suggested that we would look at a consent calendar and put many of the routine items under the consent calendar. You could still pull them off, of course, and act on them, and then have new items and, more items we know will take deliberation as a separate part of the agenda. And the purpose of that, of course, is to try to move things along more quickly if we can. I think that pretty much covers it. Do any of the commissioners have a problem with scheduling those two meetings together on Wednesday?
I do. I quickly today reviewed the suggestions. And the problem I have is, number one, as a person that's employed, meetings now, a lot of times last from 7:30 to 9. If we're combining them, I can see a half a day gone. And for a person that's employed, that makes it difficult. Number two, and I feel strongly about this, is I think 7:30 in the morning, I'd rather have it 7:30 in the evening. Number one, it doesn't affect my employment. Number two, gives the audience or public that wants to come in the opportunity to come to our meeting. I realize there's not a lot of public, but at 7:30, any employed person or the average employed person isn't going to, they can't attend our meetings without taking time off work. And that's who we're here for, is the public. We're not here for our own good, so to speak. We're doing the public's business. The third item that I noticed, and I should have brought it with me tonight, presentations limited to 10 minutes. I can't see that. I think we're being awful restrictive.
Commissioner Felice, I would agree with you. My preference is evening meetings. I would much prefer arriving at 7:30 at night versus 7:30 in the morning, because I really do believe you're exactly right. We are here to serve the public, and we should do public meetings, and that's in the evenings. I lost my train of thought. I'm having either a blonde moment or a senior moment. I'm not sure which.
We better pick one.
What else were you saying? Help me here.
Okay, we talked about the meetings for employed people at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and we agree.
That are commissioners.
Evening.
Then we talked about the public attendance.
Yes.
Not being able to attend at 7:30
And I
in the morning.
agree, evening is the way to go.
And then the third thing that I spoke of was the 10-minute.
Oh, okay. The 10-minute thing, thank you very much.
And 4-hour meetings.
Okay. The 10-minute thing was basically for presentations.
Right.
The reason we came up with that was we've had several presentations where staff has presented us with a presentation that we already have a PowerPoint on. In other words, for instance, Priority Health. Priority Health came and sat and read our PowerPoint. It took them 45 minutes. Commissioner Felice, we don't need to have them read something to us that we already have in front of us. What we were suggesting was, if they have some points that they would like to stress, 10 minutes. The presentation is still online for the public to see, for the public to review. But we don't need to sit here and have someone read to us, because I would like to think we're not in second grade anymore.
But tonight's presentation would have been limited to 10 minutes, and they certainly took a lot longer than that. And I don't see how...
The chair has discretion.
Yeah, but I think we could get into some trouble there.
I'll just pass it on to the chair.
Mr. Chairman, as a member of the committee, honestly, I was somewhat reluctant to try to combine those two meetings together, because I had the same concerns Commissioner Felice had, is that, we didn't want to be out there till 11 o'clock or noon, and then folks are expected to be at work at 9 o'clock, and have responsibilities to do that. And that's when Commissioner Richardson had suggested that we try to make our meetings more efficient by having a consent calendar to approve customary minutes, grants that we normally accept, contracts we normally have in place that need renewal, departmental reports, general presentations can be quick, could be a lot quicker and summarized. So there's a way to streamline how we conduct the meetings to get us out by 9 o'clock. And that was really the only way that I felt comfortable in suggesting that we might want to look at a change, is if we can conduct the meetings in a little more streamlined fashion, we can get out at 9 o'clock. I would be fine with that. The issue with evening meetings is, based on our past review of the schedule, when we took a look at all the township board meetings are in the evening, a lot of our commitments that we have as commissioners outside of our normal standing committees are in the evenings, and there, to my knowledge, there was not an evening open Monday through Thursday that would accommodate us meeting in the evening. So I don't think our calendar would provide it. So I think it's one thing or another. I think we could try to meet as a group at 7:30 in the morning with the change in the agenda, see how it goes, give it a couple months. We can go back to the same system we had and have people come in that want to attend the meetings. I mean, it's either one or the other, but I'm willing to give it a chance.
I see a problem with interviews with what the L&A committee does now. I can see that taking forever.
We thought of that.
Well, Commissioner Richardson had a suggestion on that.
Yes.
And that's just one suggestion. I'm not saying this way to go, is that, what he suggested is that we break out 3 commissioners, and we all kind of volunteer to serve on an interview committee for different areas of government. And we would just schedule a different day through the month to do those interviews. But, I don't know if that would work or not.
Whatever. Beth?
First of all, I just want to say, one of the things that we talked about is how to more efficiently run the meetings. And one of the deadfalls, or whatever you want to call it, that we fall into is exactly what we're doing now. This on our agenda right now is not to discuss the pros and cons and what we're going to move forward with. I appreciate your concerns, and I think all that needs to be hashed out because you have some very valid comments. Right now, what we sought to do, I believe, is just update this commission on that board rule subcommittee and determine how we're going to post the meetings the first week of January. Would that be correct?
Yes. I think I'll post the meetings as under the old system for the first week in January until we see if the board changes it. Is that how the board would like me to do it?
I mean, that's fine.
Does anybody realize the Red Wings are playing tonight?
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
fine.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Otherwise,
Another thing that we need to know, and I didn't catch it in Bob's draft that he sent us, but we had an extensive discussion about limiting our meetings to 3 hours, whether they're at 7:30 in the morning or 7:30 at night, or 7 o'clock at night. We want to limit these meetings, these 5-hour meetings. All of us get a little punchy by the time we get to the end of that.
Let me ask a question, Al. In the state statute, isn't there a time limit on what time you gotta get done at night?
No, I don't think so. No, you can go all night. You can go into the early, wee morning hours.
Like the state legislature.
Prosecutor at the home.
Pictures of people sleeping at their desks.
As long as Cooney's here.
Huh?
You know?
I was going to say.
As long as Cooney's here.
All right, let's move on.
All right.
That's the end of our
We've determined that we'll post the meetings same as standard. We'll have this discussion on January 4th, and can we move on the agenda, please?
Wonderful.
We are done. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. Now can we go back? Reports of special committee, standing committee, whatever they were, whatever they used to be. Item number 2. Move forward.
That would be me. I have a very quick question for Dennis and/or Al. This resolution that I read sounds like Alger County is opposing Grosse Pointe. Yeah, it is. My question, Dennis, is if we simply receive and file, that is not an indication of support one way or the other, is it?
Right.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Thank you, that's all I needed to know.
Okay.
I'll move to receive and file the resolution opposing the MI Water ballot initiative.
Support.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved and supported, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same, carried. A lot of name dropping tonight, you notice that?
Number 28's me.
Maybe you can wear handcuffs.
17.
17.
Oh, I'm sorry.
17.
Well, we
Yeah.
got number 7 was pulled by Commissioner Friend.
7?
17.
17.
17.
17.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wrote down 7.
Page 35. Yes, ma'am.
The only thing that I wanted to bring our attention, I talked with Dennis about this a little bit beforehand, but this was an appointed position that'll now become an employee, and I just, go ahead.
It's an appointed position. And an employer that are not, they're the same thing.
You can help me then,
Without a
Mr.
difference?
Schneider, because the question that I had, and I think I brought it up a little bit at Ways and Means, was about, have we ever put out a question on who might be interested in providing the services, an RFP, a posting for the position, whatever you want to call it. And my understanding was not too many people are interested in being the medical examiner. So, and I understand that, but I did get some information too from Fred Kiesler, who talked about kind of the long history of this position. But what would be the appropriate thing to do if the commission chose to do so? Would it be to post the position? Would it be to how to handle this, to see if there are any other individuals who may be interested? Not that I'm expecting necessarily there are, but I'd like to provide that opportunity.
Well, traditionally, or historically, let me put it that way, a pathologist that was working through Munson Medical Center acted as the county medical examiner, but it was not a position that was desired by any of the pathologists that were. And so it's difficult to find someone who's interested in taking upon the duties of a medical examiner in communities such as ours. We contract for autopsies. Dr. Houghton, the current appointed medical examiner, does not perform autopsies. He would not be considered a forensic pathologist, but he has, but he does does perform the services of a medical examiner sufficiently to get us by. If we need an autopsy, we contract that with, I believe it is Spectrum Health.
Correct.
So let's just say this were a desirable position, for argument's sake.
Okay.
What procedure would we go through in letting people know that
I
this?
suppose you just ask for, advertise, ask for an RFP.
No, well, I don't think you would ask for an RFP, because an RFP is used for a contract. So we would post it,
Right.
and we would advertise the position availability, and then commissioners would interview, and you would make a selection and then appoint a person into the role.
That's correct.
Okay. And their contract was through the end of this year, and then it was extended, correct? Through February?
I believe that the appointment was through the end of 2009, so it was necessary to reappoint a medical examiner starting for, 2010.
And I think you may be confusing this one with the medical doctor at the sheriff's office jail.
Oh, okay.
That one
was
we
through-
extended through February of
Okay.
2009.
Until we
Okay.
get the new service started.
So this position was appointed through the end of this year then?
Yes. The contract was, yes.
Okay, so, all right, well, I would like to move that we post this position.
Didn't you already appoint? I believe you already appointed Dr. Houghton as the medical examiner to a 4-year term.
I believe
We're just
Yeah, it was
changing
in
it
the
from
consent
the
calendar.
Are we just changing it from the contractual to an employee position?
I didn't think that we
Yeah,
had officially already appointed for a 4-year term.
That was in the consent calendar under appointments. It's pulled. Are appointments pulled? No, they got passed on item number 29. If you look at page 61, he's listed.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yes, it is, Mayor.
Yeah.
I thought thinking it was all under the one topic.
Yeah, he's already been approved.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But I can attest to it not, pathologists not really wanting to do that job, particularly if you're not a forensic, like Al has said. Back in the old days, we had a coroner, and the statute changed, and the position became a medical examiner. And for the ones of you that are not real familiar, if you have a death, an unexpected death, not attended by a physician, you have to, even though it's very obvious, maybe the person's been dead a month, or an hour, it doesn't make any difference. You have to have a medical examiner come over and declare that person dead before the body can be removed.
I would move that the Grand Traverse County approve the change in status in agreement with the county medical examiner as stated above, effective January 1st, 2010.
Support.
Moved and supported. Further discussion?
I've had a multitude of opportunities to work with Dr. Houghton in these situations, and he's very professional and he's very prompt. He gets death certificates signed and
Anything else?
move on.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Well, now we're back to
28.
the next
60.
Me?
one. Number 28,
Okay.
page 60.
My only question is, we are increasing payment in lieu of insurance to $2,000 for all non-contract employees as well as for all elected officials. And I just want to make sure that we are omitting the county board.
Yep, you have an opinion that we passed out from the prosecutor's office that says that cannot be changed for the county board during the current term. It have to be done for next year.
Just wanted to double check.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And I will move for approval.
Support.
Moved and supported. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passes. Number 30.
Next one, I'll be quick. I don't support this resolution.
I would move that we pass the Twin Lakes easement resolution.
Support.
Moved and supported. Discussion.
I guess I would have 2 points of discussion. One, I did check the tax map. There isn't a current survey that I found of Twin Lakes Park that shows exactly how much frontage Grand Traverse County owns on the north side of North Long Lake Road in this area. But as near as we can measure it off the tax map, it's somewhere between 580 and 600 feet. This easement is, 10, 15 feet wide by 600 feet adjacent to the road right away. You wouldn't be able to build anything or do any development within that area anyway because of setback requirements, along with the fact that topography there would not facilitate such use of that property. I'm not exactly sure why the acknowledgement per se has my name on it, other than the fact that I am the District 9 Commissioner for this. And Al, can you tell me, would that be appropriate that I would sign this on behalf of the county, or is this something that the county board chairman should sign?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was given something to read while you were speaking.
Well, see?
I'm sorry.
No, it's not a problem. This is a easement for overhead electrical lines by Consumers Power. And when they drafted this, which was, probably a year and a half ago, at that time I was board chairman, but in here they have that that I would sign it as District 9 County Commissioner for Grand Traverse County. Would that be appropriate that I would sign that contract, or it should be signed by the board chairman, correct?
Chairman.
So we'll just have to make that note with the change.
The only reason I oppose this is public parkland. Consumers is not a public utility. I believe that the public deserves something for the right-of-way, and so I will be opposing this.
Anybody else?
Was this seen by the Parks and Rec Board, correct?
Yes, and they approved it.
And they approved it unanimously?
No. It was approved, it was not unanimous.
And what subcommittee did this come through again?
Physical resources.
And it was, what was the vote on that?
3-1.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same?
Aye.
Roll call vote.
Axbar?
No.
Fleece?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Hinman?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Stepka?
Yes.
Thomas?
Motion passes. Next one is number 34, Howard Arena doors. Page 7.
My name's Steve McBride. I represent McBride Brothers, White Lake. We bid this job, and we feel that there was a discrepancy on the bid form that led to the misjudgment of our bid or miscalculation of our bid or whatever. Our true bid for this job is $10,650, not $18,465. If you look at the next page, which is our actual bid form, it was broken down into two parts. The first part was just the door replacement for replacing the doors. Our bid was $7,815. The next part, if you read the description, it reads the same as the above description.
Oh.
Okay? So under that description, our bid is $10,650, including the frames.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. This was pointed out to Danny. If you look on the next page, it was reported to the Builders Exchange at $10,650 as us being the lowest bidder.
Okey-dokey.
Okay. We were given the reason that we were not getting, or not being recommended is we were not a local contractor. We have a local subcontractor that was going to do the entire job. We're going to sub it to them, which was Northern Michigan Glasses, which has done work at the Howe Arena before, in the past. They employ about 20 people in your county and do about $4 million of work.
Mr. Chairman? In looking this over, I understand where Mr. McBride, where there would be a discrepancy in this. If you look at price factor number 2, it's titled frame replacement. But clearly, the language under that does not describe that portion of it and could make it, in my opinion, unclear and confusing. So my recommendation would be that you not take action on this tonight and that you send it back to Danny. We'll review it for its accuracy. It may require that we rebid it. It may require that we just make a different choice in terms of the recommendation. But I'm not in a position tonight. I think there's enough ambiguity in this that it needs to go back and be re-reviewed. So I recommend that you not approve this and send it back to committee and back for a review by Danny and myself.
Motion to send back to Physical Resources and review by staff.
Support.
Discussion?
Should it go back to physical resources or just go back to
Danny?
Brown?
Well,
Let's go back to Danny Brown.
And then
it's going to have to come back to you in January anyway, if we hold these bids. And so my suggestion is I'll take it back to Danny, we'll re-report to Physical Resources next month, and then that'll still make the end of January board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be done over again because maybe some other bidders
There was one other bidder, it looks, if you,
I think of that last bid
Yeah.
was the same
Why
thing.
the discrepancy, now I know.
Two people bid it one way, two people bid it the other way is what it
Exactly.
looks like, you know?
Exactly.
Okay.
well, I mean, if I wouldn't have read the line, then yeah, I probably would have bid it, you know, but.
So, Mr. McBride, what we'll do, if the board passes this motion, we'll notify you when the Physical Resources Committee will meet, and I will have Danny Brown call you personally and let you know kind of what we've decided on how we're going to recommend it, okay?
Okay, thank you.
I have one further question, if I might. So you noticed this discrepancy and contacted facilities?
Pardon
You
me?
noticed the discrepancy
Oh, yes.
in the bid and contacted facilities?
Well, I contacted Danny Brown, I don't,
Oh,
okay.
would that be prior to the Physical Resources meeting, December 9th, or after?
Yes. Well, if you look at the bottom of the, bottom of this, it was report 1113.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carries.
Thanks
you.
for waiting.
Thank you.
Number 36.
36.
That would be me. I pulled this. I am a strong supporter of TART trails. I am not a strong supporter of feasibility studies. This is a feasibility study. Garfield Township residents and Traverse City residents are paying, as Garfield residents, Traverse City residents, and county residents. I oppose that. That's number one. They shouldn't pay 3 times. Number 2, the last feasibility study that I could find was done, I believe, in 1993, and no action was taken. Typically, a feasibility study is good for 5 years. If someone can tell me that millions of dollars will become available within the next 5 years, and say it with confidence, to determine whether or not we can actually tunnel under South Airport Road, I might consider this. But again, this is a feasibility study. This is not TART trails. City residents, Garfield residents are paying more than once. It's not necessary. Thousands of dollars to, and I would ask, has any other board member gone over there and walked it and seen whether or not you can actually tunnel under that particular spot? I have.
The river did. The river did.
I know. I can't support yet another feasibility study based on the past.
Well, if we don't get a motion, we won't have to.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the funding as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Discussion. Sonny?
You know, my comment will be the same as it was at Ways and Means last week. I believe that when the road commission reconfigured the lighting and such at Logan's Landing, they did their best to incorporate pedestrian traffic across that intersection. The idea that you can't cross-country ski through there without stopping and waiting for the light to change, that doesn't seem to do any good to me, so.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same?
No.
Aye.
Roll call vote.
Police?
Yes.
Wheelock?
No.
Hooper?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Stepka?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
No.
Thomas?
Only because the other two have put in, I'm gonna vote for it. 'Cause without our money, it goes down to 2.
Motion passed.
Next item,
I'll be quick.
New World Systems. Yes, ma'am.
I did have lunch with the mayor about a week ago, and I asked him whether or not the city has been consulted on this, and he didn't indicate that they were. Have they been?
Here comes your answer,
Go ahead, Don, I'll let you start.
Mr. Budget Buster.
Just needed a yes or a no, but go ahead.
Brian Hefner sat in on the committee as the city's representative, but no, I've not talked directly to the mayor.
No, and I have
Identify
talked with the
yourself.
city manager, but I have not talked with the mayor either.
So is the city commission aware of this?
Well, they gave us $24,000 in grant funds, or was it 24, Don?
It has 24 something.
They
But
gave us 24,000.
Are they aware of this specific vendor being awarded the bid? That's my only question.
I would say probably not.
Brian
Okay, thank you.
Hefner is, I don't think the city council is. But the city council wouldn't necessarily
Certainly
need to be, because
Right.
they have a contract with the county, at least
Right.
at this time, to provide the service.
Correct.
I understand that.
Beth, and then Sonny, and then I think you, Paul, was up.
He needs to identify himself, Mr. Chair.
I know he does.
Don Sheehan, Director of IT for Grand Traverse County. Sorry.
Don was watching at home, I said, if it gets pulled from the agenda, come and
on
see
in.
us. So that's why he's here.
So, there was a city representative, an employee from the city who sat on this subcommittee?
Yes,
Or this
police department.
committee or group that reviewed it. You've talked with the city administrator,
Manager.
and they forwarded $24,000 in
Grant funds.
grant funding for
Committed.
this.
We have not
Committed.
received.
So if we're talking about whether it's made its way to the city commission, we'd be really talking about their communication processes, not whether or not we should approve this or not.
Sonny?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to purchase from New World Systems the public safety application in amount of $711,100 plus a 5% contingency, minus the grant funding that we have, so we are actually expending cash dollars in amount of $651,793.
Support. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same?
Aye.
Roll call vote.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Stepka?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
No.
Police?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes. The last one, item 41, Sheriff's Office, vehicle purchase, page
Yep.
77.
This is.
Dollar amounts are coming around.
I'm passing them around. As we indicated to you at Ways and Means when we talked to you, we had to go back and look at what vehicles were available. The 2 vehicles that they had intended to buy were sold and no longer available. And so they were able to find 2 2010 Ford Escapes. Your original direction was for under $20,000. Thank you. Now you're on TV, in case you didn't know.
Smile and turn around.
Turn around, when you turn around, you have to smile,
Approved.
because you're on TV.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you said 2 under 20,000 apiece. They came in at $19,087.92. Those are two 2010 Ford Escapes. So we're recommending approval.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the purchase of two 2010 Ford Escapes from Vilmarsh Ford in the amount of $19,087.92 each for use by the Grand Traverse Sheriff's Department. These are detective vehicles, I believe.
Support.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carries.
Alrighty.
Now, we have another opportunity for public to comment. If not, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Old business, new business.
Support? Somebody supported it. All in favor?
Aye. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Everyone have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you bright and early on the 4th of January.
What?
The calendar.
Well,
No, we have,
You gotta do it on
calendar.
January anyway.
well, we have the organization.
Well,
meeting on the
organizational
4th.
meeting, we'll tell the calendar.
8 o'clock on the 4th.
Like it or not.
All right, we're done.
Everybody have a great Christmas.
You too, Jim. You too.
Hold together.
I gotta tell you, just,
So, happy Wednesday, huh?
You and I are gonna.
Absolutely.
yeah, this
I think it's roasted and almost better, I think.
But you know, over the years,